I think that's so crazy.
Jeff, are you froze again?
Here he is. Doggone.
Okay. Can you do that? So he froze again.
Good eye, Lynn, because I wasn't even paying attention. He's gone.
Oh, he's gone again.
He was frozen,
Oh,
and Lynn caught it.
oh, it did.
I hear the wind whipping up out here now.
It is. It's getting dark too.
Yeah, it's starting to get bad here too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, dog, we are in the same city.
All
Right.
right. So we got our own storm. There he is. There's Keyshawn. Yeah. Are you back there?
All right, I'm here. I'm here. I don't know if you can. You should be able.
I can see you.
Okay. All right. Let's try this.
Grand.
Yeah.
Let me get this going on Facebook here, and we will be back. Good to go. Right.
I'm waiting. There's Sturgeon, Ohio. Okay. That's what you're waiting for. Yes. I love it. Hours.
Okay. All right. So we were discussing verse 24. And
26. I read
26.
26.
That's it.
oh, right, 24 to 26, right. Okay, 24 through 26, that section there. And I said, Paul, we were talking about how Paul's destiny was greater than any death or greater than death by storm and being shipwrecked. God's divine plan was not going to be thwarted at all. It seems like God is giving us the visual effect of what Paul was seeing while he was on the ship here tonight for our study as well. If you just, well, I don't know what it looks like outside where you're at, but it is, you can tell it's getting ready to get down here. But
Talk fast. Talk fast.
Talk fast. So I preached a sermon. It's amazing. I preached a sermon some time ago where I was teaching what has now been dubbed as crazy faith. And I said a statement similar to, like, if I was on a plane, then I believe and I have enough faith that everybody that's on that plane is now safe and favored because I'm on that plane with them. And I believe that that the favor that is on my life, that and the way that I walk with God and the provision of protection that God has around me is so great that he'll protect me, and by protecting me, he's going to protect everybody else. There were some who couldn't believe that. They couldn't believe it there at all. And what I think the thing that they couldn't understand is the fact that I wasn't bragging on myself at all. It's nothing great about me, but it's everything great about my God. It's nothing that I'm doing, but I'm banking on the promises that God has given me. I'm banking on the promises of what God has said to me, and how great our God is. And so when I say things like that, it's not that oh, I'm this great person and God can't let anything happen to me, but because I'm banking on the fact that God said as my father that he'll protect me, that he has a state of protection around me, that I have favor, that I'm an heir, and that I'm walking according to his purpose there. And I believe that that purpose is greater, that is much greater than whatever obstacles may come my way there. So here in these verses, we see the entire crew having their lives spared simply because Paul was on board that ship. The only reason that everybody, as we find out, there's approximately 276 people. We find that out later. But the reason that all of them are spared is because Paul is on ship, because Paul is there. And so everybody's life is spared because this one faithful man, this servant of God, is on the ship there. And I need you to understand that that God looks at it like that. You remember the story? I believe it's in Genesis when God was going to go back and destroy the city, and this I believe it was Abraham that kept asking him, God, but what if you find so many good people there? And God said, well, if you can find that many good people there, I won't destroy the city. And I think he got all the way down to like 10. If you can find 10 or one good person there, I won't destroy the city there. God is a God who is always, doesn't matter, like there doesn't have to be a large group of people faithful for God to show up. If there's one person faithful, God will show up and be with that one faithful person. If there's two faithful people, whatever it is. And so as you go into your different arenas of work and life and just whatever you're doing, just keep that in mind, that although you may be the only faithful person, the only God-fearing person in that environment, God sees that, and God will make sure to protect you in there. And even though those around you may not agree with it, they're favored also because they're in the same environment that you're in. These sailors, as we're going to see, they weren't faithful men of God. They didn't necessarily they didn't necessarily love God. They weren't necessarily good people, as we're going to see. But because that Paul is with them, God spares their life as well. So, any thoughts on that? This is the opposite, actually, of what we see that happened with the prophet Jonah. We see with Jonah, because Jonah was on the boat, everybody's life was being threatened. But this is the opposite of that, because Paul is on the boat, everybody's life is being preserved and being saved. Okay, verse 27. Sister Rochelle, you with us? I see her down there. I see her name.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. Okay, verse 27.
Yes.
On the 14th night, we were being carried across the Adriatic Sea. Around midnight, the sailors began to suspect that land was near.
Okay. And verse 28, back to you, Sister Lanisha.
They took soundings and found that the water was 120 feet deep. A short time later, they took soundings again and found it was 90 feet deep.
Okay. So a fathom is in Greek is equivalent to 6 feet or 2 meters there. And so some of your translations may say fathoms there, like mine says 20 fathoms, 15 fathoms. But as Sister Lanisha's has it, it has the translation of that, which is 120 feet or 90 feet there. Soundings were made by, they would throw a weighted marked line into the water. And when the lead on that hit the bottom, sailors could tell the depth of the water and by the marks on the rope there. So the soundings would allow them to see how close and how fast they were approaching land, because the shorter the line went down and the mark on the rope was, you would know that, hey, I'm getting closer to land because the water is getting more shallow. And so that's how they would kind of figure it out there. And so the thing though is that they can't see anything because it's nighttime. So they're approaching and they're dropping these things. And it's crazy because it's so dark out that you can't see anything. They don't have like the big spotlights on the ship or anything like that. So they can't really see what's ahead of them. The overlay of the sky is completely covered up. So they can't tell the navigation, as we talked about last week, by the stars and all of that, how they normally do. So they're kind of just going in the night and they're listening and they're like, oh my gosh, we're getting close to land. Are we going to crash? We can't see what's ahead of us. We don't know what's going on there. The Adriatic Sea in ancient times extended south down through Crete and Malta, where they eventually shipwreck at, and much farther. It's much farther than where it goes today. This is also a reference point of being the central point of the Mediterranean Sea between Italy, Crete, and the northern coast of Africa. So they're in like the most central point of all of that at this point in time when all of this is going on there. Okay, verse 29, Granny.
Then fear lest we should run aground on the rocks that they dropped 4 angles from the stern and prayed for day to come.
Okay, so the location there is probably the Rocky Promontory, which is the point of higher land that juts out into the large body of the headland. So that's probably what they're feeling at this point in time. It's on the northeastern coast of Malta, known today as Point Koura, Koura, there. So if you ever, I don't know why you would be in that area, but if you were ever there or you were ever looking on a map, this is a reference to have there. Ancient ships had multiple anchors. Before they released from the stern, would keep the ship steady and facing toward the land. This keeps them from turning at this point in time. This was an unusual measure. Usually you would drop anchors from the bow, which would have swung the ship around, because normally you wouldn't want to go into the ground. But so this shows that they're listening. If you look back at what Paul told them back in verse 25 and 26, he says, so take heart, men, for I have faith in God that it will be exactly as I've been told, but we must run aground on some island. So now they're getting close to this island. They can't see it, but they're maneuvering now off Paul's faith and his belief in God. So in this moment, they're so scared and they're out of it that they're just trusting in what God says. So they do all of these things, because normally you would drop the anchors from the bow, which would turn the ship around and take it away from the island, because you wouldn't want to crash into that. But because they're trusting in what Paul said, they said, okay, we're getting close to the land. Let's drop these anchors to keep going straight and hopefully get and land and run aground on this island here. And to me, that's oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was talking to myself. I said, "Ooh, that sounds so scary."
Oh, absolutely, no, it really does. It is really scary to be. I mean, if you think of this, you're on the ship. It's the middle of the night. You're 14 days now. You've been 14 days without really any guidance or knowing anywhere you're going. We're going to see that those 14 days of outflow have also been spent without food. And you're thinking like you're going to die, and all you have is this prisoner who's probably in chains and bound, who comes to you and says, like, listen, you should have listened to me then, but listen to me now. Everything is going to be all right. Everything is going to work out. He's not a professional sailor. He's traveled a lot. But all you know is that he's a prisoner that came on the ship there and is trying to get to Rome. Maybe you've heard stories about him, maybe you haven't, but you're going off of his word, and that's all you have there. And that's so amazing, because everybody else may be panicking, but Paul is content knowing that as long as you guys listen to me, I know that God is going to work this out. I've been in these situations before, and God has saw me through. I've been shipwrecked over 3 times, and God has saw me through. So I'm in another situation here where I know that God is going to work it out for my good there. When it talks about in the middle of a midnight squall there, so in the middle of a midnight squall, the passengers and the crew did all they possibly could do. They dropped some of the anchors to try to stop the runaway ship, and the the Bible says, and they prayed there. So a midnight squall is a sudden violent gust of wind or localized storm, especially bringing rain, sleet, or snow there. So they're in the middle of this storm. They're in the middle of everything that's going on here. But they're praying. They stop, and now they do something that is uncharacteristic probably for them. They pray. Paul is praying to the one God who can do anything about this situation. This is a good reminder for us. We must never rely solely on our own wisdom or our own skills. At the same time, though, let me say that, at the same time, it is equally wrong to sit and do nothing when there are still actions we can take to overcome certain problems. And we talked about this a little bit last week. Do all that we can do to fix the problem and then trust God to do his part. And so just because they're they can't see, they've been out on sea 14 days, they're scared, their ship is being torn apart, they're thinking they're going to die, that's not an excuse to just throw in the towel and to give up. God is saying to keep pushing forward and trying to do everything you can do. And when you've done everything that you can do and you can't do any more, that's when you trust me. Ultimately, that's when you trust him through the other part as well, but you trust more in him when you get to that point where my hands are tied, I can't do any more. God, I've done everything that I can do to help fix this situation, to help monitor, to help bring a resolution here. I've done everything I could. God, I'm turning it over now to you. I'm placing it in your hands. I'm trusting you with it there. And so that's a good reminder for us as children of God to make sure that we don't solely just rely on our own wisdom or skills, but at the same time, we trust God and do everything we can and trust God through the process. Any thoughts or comments? Okay. Verse 30, Sister Tolbert.
In an attempt to escape from the ship, the sailors let the lifeboat down into the sea, pretending they were going to lower some anchors from the bow.
Okay. Verse 31, Sister Drummond.
Paul said to the centurions and to the soldiers, except these abide in this ship, ye cannot be saved.
Okay. And verse 32, Keyshawn.
Then the soldiers cut off the ropes of the boat and let her fall off.
Okay. So they knew they were nearing the land. So they decided to take the ship's only small boat and get themselves safely to shore. This is such a selfish action. And it would have left no one on the ship with the skill to handle it, which would have led to much loss of life. So the sailors, the ones who are responsible for controlling the ship, are at this point in time getting ready to save themselves and move on to shore, basically leaving the ship and everybody else on it to basically fend for themselves there. So this is very selfish. It would have led to much life. But Paul warned the centurion of the sailors' plan, and he stopped them. So he tells the centurion what's going on here, and the soldiers, look, if they leave and they go, you cannot be saved. You're going to lose your life if they do this. So the centurion steps up and he stops them from doing that. And we see here the centurion plays a pivotal role. He is the highest ranking officer or official on the board there. So although it's not his ship, he has the authority to tell them to not do that or what to do, and they have to follow suit and they have to listen to what he says there.
Jeff, you can liken that to the church today when there's trouble and stuff like that, and you always want to run out and get out, but except you stay in the church, you shall not be saved.
Amen. Amen. And that's a very good analogy there. And no matter what church you go to, you're gonna find problems. So running away is absolutely not the answer or the solution to that there. Amen. Very good observation. Paul's action shows the compatibility of divine sovereignty with also human responsibility. So he shows the divine fact that he cares about the people's lives, and also the human responsibility that we need you guys on this boat because we're not at the point yet to where we need to get off yet. God will always fulfill his promises. But that doesn't negate the importance of human actions as the means God uses to carry out his promises. So sometimes God will use, or we know this already, but God oftentimes uses us as a part of his plan or a part of his will there. Whatever it is that God is leading us to do, he'll include us in that as a part of his will there. We also see Paul's wisdom play in the next episode here on the island, next episode, when all the sailors were needed. And we'll look at that. The soldiers may have acted unwisely by cutting the ropes to the skiff. The skiff is a shallow, flat bottom, open boat with the sharp and square stem there, so the little small boats there. So they cut the ropes to them in attempt to thwart any further escape plans by the sailors. So the soldiers say, we're going to make sure that you can't get out. We're going to cut the ropes. It may not have been the wisest thing to do, but it eliminated the means of escape by any of the sailors there, and it saved and preserved everybody's life. So they were thinking the bigger picture there. Sometimes, though, we have to be careful of trying to force people to want to be part of something that they don't want to be a part of. Now, this is not in this situation here. Paul lets them know that if they leave, you're going to die. So I understand that. But many times, do we sometimes try to get people to be a part of something or hold on to something longer than or let me phrase it like this: do sometimes we do more of a disservice by holding on to people who want to go, or trying to keep people around who don't want to be around. In that regard, do we sometimes do a disservice by doing that? Y'all quiet.
It's a good question. I'm meditating.
I was just thinking the same thing, like,
And I know, because sometimes we think, like sometimes people say, they don't want to come to church, they don't want to do this, they don't want to do that, or they don't want to be a part of something, or whatever. And sometimes we'll try to force them to be a part of it. We'll try to force them to stay connected there. But are we sometimes doing a disservice by doing that? Because, we want everybody to be saved. We want everybody to be a part of the kingdom. But if somebody's there who doesn't really want to be there, are they going to do more? Are they going to be more harmful or helpful to the process and to the purpose there? Are they always going to be the negative Nancy or the doubting David? Are they, or is it our hope that if they stay around us long enough, that something will click and they'll eventually, that light bulb will click on and they'll become dedicated and they'll become faithful?
I guess I think that we should always be encouraging.
Uh-huh.
But I know you can't force anybody to do anything that they don't want to do. Mm-hmm. But I think we can encourage them to do what's right, and that's all we can do, and the rest is up to them.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'll give my thought. Anybody else? Very good. I feel that if I have to twist your arm to love Jesus, then the motivation for you loving Jesus is not what he did for you, but it's my twisting of your arm. Mm-hmm. If I have to threaten you to love Jesus, then your love for Jesus is not because of what he did for you, but
oh, come on.
I think he left us again, and this is going to be the last time for me.
Come on.
On again. We're going to get it soon.
Yeah.
What time are you guys supposed to get it, Sean?
It said on the TV, it said we were under until 7:45. So I'm thinking that any time now.
Okay.
And where are you that you're not going to get it, Keyshawn?
Well, I ain't say I wasn't gonna get it now.
Where time y'all gonna get it?
I know we're gonna get it. I know we're gonna get it. It's just like whatever the time is.
Right.
Say something, but if it's hitting him now, it'll probably hit you and then it'll hit me.
Right.
Cause you stay in Elyria, right? I stay in
Right.
Lorraine.
And you're in Lorraine. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, so until next Wednesday, I'll see y'all
Right.
later then.
Okay. I'll say the same.
All right.
All right.
Good night, y'all.
Good
Good
night.
night.